Welcome, friends. We are your hosts, Sandy and Wade, baby best friends turned husband and wife and business partners.
This podcast is for the dreamers, the movers and shakers, and those who seek to attract their dream life.
Strap in. Getting magnetic in 3, 2, 1.
Like attracts like. If you see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. You just decide what it's going to be, who you're going to be, how you're going to do it. And then from that point, the universe is going to get out your way.
This moment in time, this is your time to rise.
We are back to interviewing. I'm excited for today's guest. It is Morgan Zanotti. She's the president and co-founder of Primal Kitchen. Do you guys know that brand? If not, you're going to get to know it and you're going to want to be involved in using it. So Morgan Zanotti, she's the president and co-founder of Primal Kitchen. It's one of the fastest growing brands in the natural products industry. And with her energetic leadership, innovative mindset, Primal Kitchen launched the first avocado oil-based mayonnaise and salad dressings, along with a bevy of other industry-leading pantry staples. Prior to Primal Kitchen, she ran marketing for Kavita and managed brands within PepsiCo's Growth Ventures portfolio for a boutique advertising agency. She spent her post-college years as a yawn-plagued accountant turned nomadic adventurer in South America and as a wannabe yogi in Hawaii. When Morgan's not tirelessly working to improve our food system, you can find her surfing, hanging out with her little dudes, or wandering farmers markets looking for fresh eats. I'm excited for this interview today. And side note, I actually got certified to be a health coach within the Primal Health Coach Institute tied to this brand. So I know this brand very well. The co-founders, we met Morgan today. Mark Sisson is also a co-founder. He's like one of my nutrition mentors in the health and wellness space. But we got into today like so many good topics. Morgan really empowered us what it looks like to be an entrepreneur, to break into a hard to break into category, how to bring an idea or a vision to life, how to balance it with being a mom of two and one on the way, and kind of casting that big vision. Like they had a vision for this and they just sold it for $200 million. So we'll get into that story too. But without further ado, let's bring Morgan onto the show. And here we go. Morgan, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you here.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. It's great to meet you.
Yes. So really excited to hear your story today. And before we get into Primal Kitchen, how you co-founded it with Mark and all the, battle stories there, we want to know, before Primal Kitchen, who is Morgan? Like, what's your story leading up to co-founding Primal Kitchen?
Yeah. I mean, what a loaded question. I like how you're really kicking it off with a hard one. Let's see. Who is Morgan? So I grew up in Chicago. I went to school at CU Boulder. I got an accounting degree. And then after college, I was an accountant for 9 months and it was really boring. I spent like half the time planning a trip to leave the country. So I was supposed to go to Argentina for just like 3 months. I convinced my best friend from childhood to move down to Argentina with me. So did a year, quit my first job to be a waitress at my aunt and uncle's resort in northern Wisconsin, and then moved out of the country. And then we met these 3 girls from Ireland. And then my 3-month trip turned into like 2.5 years in South America. We were on what they call like the Gringo Trail. So you're by bus from the southern tip of South America, Ushuaia, all the way to Colombia. I lived in Mexico for a bit, learned how to surf in Ecuador, was doing research for this political author. So I was kind of like living the 4-hour work week, right when like Tim Ferriss and the 4-hour work week was emerging. I remember reading the book and I'm like, why am I reading this book? I live off of 10 grand a year. I make 12 grand a year and I'm in South America learning a different language and whatever. Anyway, so it was kind of like living my own version of that story. Then I had, at the end of that trip, I met a woman from California, and I had never been to California, which is funny. Grew up in the Midwest, whatever. And she said, oh yeah, like I do this cleanse every year from this company, Standard Process. They like grow their own herbs. They're a Wisconsin-based company, grow their own herbs and stuff. And they do like, your typical back then cleanse wasn't like, maybe these were kind of the days of like, if you remember the master cleanse, like maple syrup and cayenne pepper and water. Yeah. But this was like, you take pills, but it came with like some diet stuff, like cut out processed foods, try to eliminate meat, just like really clean it up. And I had never done anything like that before. And I I had like my own kind of health revelation, like things that I didn't know were bothering me cleared up, like allergies, like constipation issues, like skin, just everything. I felt a lot better. So I kind of went on eating in that way. And then it sparked this just like obsession with the health and wellness movement. So it was like Michael Pollan and then Food Inc. And then, God, I think I even read like Skinny Bitch at one point in time. And then I just couldn't get enough. And that grew into like, well, what's happening in this paleo movement? And I was interviewed on the news for intermittent fasting like 10 years ago before intermittent fasting was a thing. I got into like the keto diet pretty early on. I was working with Mark at the time. So anyway, fast forward, came home from South America, had like my reverse culture shock. Just like, what am I doing? I do not belong in the United States. Like, I can't believe people spend $100 a night going to bars. I'm like 25 at this point. I ended up at an advertising agency in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I managed the Frito-Lay account. So I was working on all the brands Frito-Lay owns that don't have Frito-Lay on the back of the packaging. So I learned a ton about the food industry and just package design and, these arms of big companies that acquire these smaller companies that are kind of like better for you, if you will. At Frito-Lay, there wasn't like too much better for you, but there are at other big CPG companies. And then I decided I hadn't surfed in like a year and a half. That became like a really big passion of mine when I was traveling. So I went out to California. I actually was dating someone at the time. I broke up with him, moved to California. I was like, I'm 28 at this point in time. They let me keep my job and work remote, but then I became obsessed with Kavita. Do you know Kavita, the sparkling probiotic drink? They're like the number 2 player in the kombucha category. And I reached out on LinkedIn to their like VP of sales. And I was like, are you guys hiring anything? And they're like, actually, we're hiring a director of marketing. So I interviewed for that position and became the director of marketing for this brand, Kavita. They were headquartered. I'm living in Manhattan Beach at the time, Hermosa Beach in Los Angeles, achieving my like goal of surfing in between meetings. And, just like, I'm supposed to meet like a hippie guy who lives in a van, who's a surfer for sure. I end up falling in love with this Air Force football player who's now my husband. I have baby boy number 3 on the way. But so this is all kind of like my first 6 months in California. And then, I went to work for Kavita. And then at Kavita, I knew who Mark Sisson was because I had my own personal obsession with health and wellness. And he was at the time doing these events called Primal Con. I don't know, Wade, maybe you remember, but he would have like, all these people out to a hotel in Oxnard. And it was like a lot of like ultimate frisbee, healthy food, barefoot, running on the beach type thing. And so we met because Kavita sponsored the event. I didn't need to go, but I wanted to meet Mark because I knew who he was. And we just hit it off. And then actually at the end of the night, Mark was like, if you're leaving, can you give Carrie and I a ride home to our hotel? So I gave he and his wife, Carrie, a ride home to their hotel, just kind of hilarious. And then I quit my job at Kavita. Adam and I we rented this thing called a Juicy Van. It's really cool if anyone listening wants to find it, but they're like converted minivans with a Yakima like top carrier on the top that there's like a sleeping bed. So you can just very easily like camp anywhere. So we rented it. I quit Kavita. We're running this Juicy Van and we're on a surf trip from like San Francisco down to San Diego. And Mark called. Like the timing was crazy because it was kind of like my in-between period. I didn't know what I was going to do yet. Airbnb had just launched. I was renting out my room on Airbnb and like sleeping at Adam's house. I had a roommate. I don't even know. My roommate, Eddie from England. I don't even know if I asked him if he cared, but I just started renting out my room and then sleeping at Adam's. And then, Mark called and said, hey, I'm wondering if you can meet up. I want to launch this food company and I'm thinking maybe you can help. So I started as a marketing consultant for Mark. God, this is like in the end of 2013. And he had hired on another couple, like a chef. They had a separate business in the paleo space and they were helping with the rest of the business. But then it just was like too many part-time people and not enough like focus. So they actually exited the business. And then Mark was like, okay, can you come on full-time and let's do this? So I came on full-time maybe a year later in the end of 2014. And then in February of 2015, we launched the mayonnaise, this Primal Kitchen mayonnaise made with avocado oil. And Mark had a supplement company at the time. For those listening who don't know who Mark is, he's considered like, I guess, one of the founders of the paleo movement, if you will. Wade probably can give you like a better Mark bio than I even can at this point. But since he's done the health coach program. But so he had a lot of followers on this blog, Mark's Daily Apple, and he was selling supplements direct to consumer out of like a 2-room office at the Malibu Chamber of Commerce. And I was like the sole employee working on Primal Kitchen. So managing our co-mans, like our external manufacturers, doing marketing, like the Instagram account was started on my phone, hiring on a broker to get into Whole Foods, like all of those things. I actually was the sole person working at Primal Kitchen for the first year, which I wouldn't recommend. I think I probably needed some help like a few months before I let on. But we had a lot of support. We had the email list, like an audience to talk to. And then there was like a customer service team and a graphic designer that is still our graphic designer. We do everything in-house still to this day. So yeah, it was a fast and furious launch. So
I love it.
Yeah, sorry, that was like a really long, loaded story.
The lead up, that was perfect.
No, you're an amazing storyteller, and you're just so relatable. Like everyone listening is like, wait, she's so normal. Like this is so cool.
I know that's the empowering part. Is like, wait, she just wanted to surf and travel and dropped out of accounting 9 months in and went to South America for a few years and rented the van and like, now she's a co-founder of like one of the leading, natural food brands or healthy food brands. Like it's so empowering. And a little background for the listeners is, a lot of you probably know if you've been listening or you follow me on Instagram, like I'm obsessed with health and wellness, as is Sandy. We love living a healthy lifestyle. And the foundation of it for me was the Primal Health Coaching Institute. I wanted to learn about health and how to be the best version of myself. And I realized a lot of it started with health and nutrition and our healthy habits. And I found who we've been referencing, Mark Sisson online. Yeah, kind of like the godfather of like paleo or ancestral primal health knowledge. He's like, I remember seeing him. I'm like, wait, this guy's like, I think he might've been like 69 at the time. I honestly forget how old he was. And he's like shredded 6-pack playing Frisbee on the beach. And I'm like, I'm going to listen to whatever this guy has to say because that's what I want to look like.
Yeah.
And so I did this.
He'll be 69 in July this year. So you probably saw that like 63, 64, and impressive nonetheless. Yeah.
Yeah. In his 60s, like absolutely, shredded playing Frisbee on the beach, sprinting and all the things. And I'm like, oh man. And so I took this Primal Health Coaching Institute to really learn. And that was the foundation for me. And then we've been using like Primal Kitchen, food products for the last 5 years or so, just because they're so good. And it's so, it's funny how the world works. We got connected with Morgan. We're like, oh my gosh, yes, we have to have that conversation.
That's awesome.
So cool. So that's all the things leading up. It almost sounds do you feel like you were a born entrepreneur or like a made entrepreneur?
I think I was a born like curious person. It's interesting. I just like, you ask yourself, so to bring you up to speed for those listening, we launched in 2015. We always had the goal of selling the company. We didn't talk about the Sandy and Wade before. I don't know how much you know about our journey since we met and launched Primal Kitchen, but Mark always knew he wanted to sell the company. There's no money to be made in food unless you can really get to scale. And it's really hard to get to scale without raising a ton of money unless you partner with like one of the bigger CPG companies. So we actually ended up selling the company to Kraft Heinz for $200 million 3 years after we launched in 2018. So, and now I work for Kraft Heinz. So I've been there for 3 years post-acquisition, which is crazy. But I often do wonder, like, is it timing? Is it luck? Like, what is it? Right? Like, how do you, but it was funny. I was just on Instagram briefly because I was telling you my despise of social media the other day, but I was just on there and there's like some researcher who's been studying luck his whole life. And he studied like all these considerably like lucky people. And it really comes down to, in his mind from his years of research, decades of research, is like mindset, like being optimistic, like believing things will work out. There's just like some personality traits that lend to like, I don't know, I guess maybe more putting yourself in a situation where luck can find you versus like not being like maybe in the game, one would say. So I think I was born with like an adventurous spirit and a lot of curiosity. And then I was confident enough to like put myself in situations I really had no business being in. And thus like luck transpired for sure. So, yeah. Wow.
Your story is so inspiring. I love it. So being that you're also like on the personal side of life, like you're a mom, you have a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old, and at this time of this recording, you're 22 weeks pregnant. How do you, for all the listeners, because we have so many like female entrepreneurs, so many mamas working and, you know, balancing their own business, like how do you, I know that's a really loaded question, but like how do you find that balance of motherhood, family, and, you know?
I mean, it's hard. It's hard. And like, I feel like it's not even fair for like at the point in which, the timing was perfect for me, right? Like I really hustled hard before I had kids. And then my first Riker was born November 6th and we sold the company November 28th. So I was like topless at a computer on the phone with like 60 lawyers, the entire investment banking team, like nursing and getting the craft deal done for the first 3 weeks. Like I took no maternity leave. Like I was thankful I had a C-section because it meant a few more nights in the hospital. I got home on Friday and on Saturday, Mark and I had a 4-hour call on like the bonuses we were giving. We bonused every single employee down to like warehouse level and with the transaction. We didn't really raise any money and had no like formal equity for the employees, but it was something we talked about from day one, like how we wanted to take care of people. And that was like the best part of selling the business, quite honestly. But Mark and I had to like go through, okay, what are we doing, you know, for 4 hours, like literally the day after I got home from the hospital. So that was my experience. I wouldn't say there was any like balance then, right? And I think now, even I was talking about this with my husband last night, like we're selling our house in Florida and moving back to Los Angeles. And with that, like all these house projects are coming and like our routine is just kind of like constantly changing every 3 months. But I think it would be like disingenuous to say like Adam, we owned a cafe that we sold 10 months before. My husband ran a cafe in San Diego. We sold 10 months before COVID. So there's like a lot of luck and timing there. Right. Wow. And he is pretty focused now on just like house projects. We've moved twice, sold 2 houses in the last 3 years and taking care of the boys. And we have a nanny. So like we have a lot of help. I think that's the only thing that makes it like manageable, like living near family or being able to have help. And yeah, otherwise, even that, it's just like, you're just so guilt ridden all the time as a mom. I don't know. I feel like, yeah, it's a lot, but it's good.
Wow. I would love to hear, and I'm sure you could share like dozens of stories on this, but what are some like hurdles that you would say? Like, I feel like so many of our listeners often feel like when there's hurdles or things in the way that it's like a sign or something that they shouldn't be going down that path. And I'm a big believer that like when you feel stuck, like it's time to lean in. Like it means like you have to figure out a way. And when it feels like nothing is happening, like everything is happening. And so I'd love to know like what are some major hurdles that you kind of overcame like throughout your journey of like,
yeah,
you know,
I like stepping back big picture too. I think we all know, you know, on this interview, but for the listeners too, you know, Primal Kitchen, this food brand, if you don't know it, is like natural food brand, started with with you guys, with you and Mark, and sold it in 3 years for $200 million to Kraft, and like so like disrupting the big food industry. So many things. There's so much to unpack there. But yeah, like share with us like the war stories and the journey and the hurdles along the way, like where the listener is gonna be like, gosh, if I have an idea, I could run with it. I can be empowered, and oh my gosh, I shouldn't just stop at the first supplier that says no. Or
yeah, I mean, it took us 3 years to even find someone to manufacture the mayonnaise. So like if we start right there, like Mark had created this like barbecue sauce, and they had found a co-man to produce the barbecue sauce. And then that co-man like bailed on us at the last minute. And then I looked at the barbecue sauce and I was like, Mark, like this may be paleo, but there's 30 fucking grams of sugar in here in the form of maple syrup. Like we're not launching this. Like, so that's been a big tenet of Primal Kitchen is like, it's not like there's a lot of that kind of like greenwashing, but paleo washing products where it's like, oh, it's paleo, it's fine. Maple syrup's like approved. And we've really stuck to like the principles of like our unsweetened ketchup is one of our top sellers. We use balsamic vinegar instead of like grain vinegar. And that's really all you need to make the ketchup taste sweet. So, you know, there was a lot just before we could even get that first product out the door. And then a lot after that. Like I remember a year in, we had secured distribution with like Whole Foods and a bunch of other retailers. Mark and I tell this story all the time. And they suddenly couldn't make our mayonnaise. Our co-man was like, we don't know what's happening. We're like, mayonnaise it's an emulsion of, you know, fat, right? And egg. So it's it's tricky. Like if you do anything a little bit wrong, or if the temperature's a little bit wrong, you end up with like this substance that looks like boogers, and you have to like pour 2,000 pounds of product down the drain. So this went on for like 2 months maybe, where they could not successfully run our mayonnaise, and our inventory is just like gone. We're out of stock. We're going to lose shelf space at Whole Foods. Like we're telling our new retailer partners, like if you can't deliver, they're just going to put someone else in your spot, and you're not getting that back, or it's going to take a year to get it back. So we came to this point where we were both like really stressed, and then to run again and try again and figure out what's going on, you need to schedule time with the co-man. Well, they're booked out. So then you're paying overtime to do like a weekend run. So it was like super stressful. And they ran our product on the weekend, and it was maybe like the third or fourth time we had tried to run it again. And it ended up being successful. They called me like Monday morning, and I was on my way into Malibu to meet Mark. And I didn't call him because I wanted to tell him in person. Like that's how big of a deal it was. I was like, this is not even like warranted to have this conversation on the phone. Like I need to tell Mark in person. And I had actually gotten engaged over the weekend. So I went to the Malibu Chamber of Commerce office. And Mark came in. He's like, so like I've been calling, like what's going on? And I was like, we're making mayonnaise and I'm fucking engaged. And both of us were just like crying in this like makeshift kitchen that we had like cobbled together. He's like, don't tell anyone, I'm crying in here. But we were both like, he's like, I'm so happy for you. And I'm so happy we're making the mayonnaise. So it was very much like, there's a lot of those moments. But I would say for us, we were really scrappy. We didn't it's very common right now in food. You go like raise a ton of money, you lose a ton of money every year, and you're just going to sell on a multiple of your growth. So you're just trying to like grow. And I think that puts you in like a really stressful position where you have to make decisions you don't want to make because of your cash flow situation. We never really raised money, so we didn't have to run the business like that. We always we ran the business within our means. And look, we had the benefit of launching within this business Mark already had. So there was already a profitable business there. And it was like the mayonnaise was the first one new product to the business. And we kind of like grew from there. And then it just quickly dwarfed the rest of the business. And now, it is what it is. But yeah, so I think we had a lot of champagne problems is what I like to call champagne problems. A lot of that where it was like, well, we got to figure it out. But like the problem isn't that no one's buying our mayonnaise. The problem is that we can't make it fast enough. Or
it's a good problem to have. Yeah.
Yeah, or we launched bars and they were terrible. I remember they hardened like a week later, but we didn't know. And so we sold like 50,000 bars online, and then these complaints started coming in and we were like, oh God, this is a nightmare. But it was like, again, champagne problems. Well, the market spoke. People want a bar that only has 3 grams of sugar and it has collagen in it. And we just need to figure out how to deliver one that isn't like breaking people's teeth. I mean, we've since just exited the bar category entirely, but
do you guys still sell those bars? I remember those bars.
Yeah, the collagen bars. Yeah, and then we had like another line of bars. And then finally, like last year, we were like, we're done with
they
bars.
Were pretty hard. I remember.
Yeah, they were. COVID killed the bar category though. Like it was detrimental for like everyone, and for us, it was always such a small. We were always like a condiments business. It was such a small part of our focus that we just made the decision it wasn't worth it. So yeah, a lot of I guess you could have looked at that bar thing and been like, this is a fiasco. We ran a promotion with coupon code dentures and seriously. And the Kraft Heinz would never let us do the shit.
Oh my God.
We did in 2016. Oh God. Yeah.
That reminds me so much. This whole story of kind of grassroots, ground up. You had a vision, you had an idea, you wanted to serve a market, and we'll kind of get into that. I almost want to use the mayonnaise as a microcosm, but it reminds us of one of our brands we have, 90 Day Habits, where we built this big global business. And we realized, a lot of people then ask you, how do you do this or that? And we just documented it in a journal form in a 90-day, business cycle. Hey, do this. Here's a blueprint for success.
Yeah.
Follow this. And we'd create a brand out of it with our friend Haley, 90 Day Habits. And we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't raise any capital or take any outside funds. We bootstrapped the whole thing. We did it messy. We did it before we were ready. And of course, all these hurdles come along the way, but you just keep going through. And I'm proud of us, almost 2 years later, we're growing and we're still going. And it is though scrappy, right? It's like the three of us founders and we have one person who works with us. So the four of us just in the trenches, like doing calling customers, like doing all the different things. And it reminds me of your story, just like where you grow grassroots from the ground up and you just figure it out as you go. And when you believe in what you're doing, it makes it so much easier. So back to like this mayonnaise, I want to go into like, so people understand, they're going to get like a health hack tip from this. Like, why'd you create the mayonnaise? And let's use, why is regular mayonnaise really not good for you? And then why'd you create the Primal Kitchen mayonnaise?
Yeah, sure. So there's like a commonly held belief by, I think a growing segment of the population that canola oil and soybean oil and sunflower and safflower to some extent are not healthy. They're actually very inflammatory and ingredients we should be avoiding. Well, when you start reading labels, you realize that canola oil is like equivalent to high fructose corn syrup. It's in everything, like everything. So at the time we launched the mayonnaise, you couldn't find a mayonnaise at the grocery store or a salad dressing that didn't have canola oil or soybean oil in it. So we were the first people in the category we used avocado oil. On top of that, they're adding sugar to mayonnaise, which is just like, really? Right. Like, do we really need the sugar in the mayonnaise? So we launched this mayonnaise with avocado oil with a very like simplified ingredient list, and oil doesn't impart like that much flavor. Like soybean and canola oil tastes like nothing, right? So, and avocado oil doesn't to an extent either. So, we were able to provide the consumer with like a swap that was very unnoticeably different in tastes. And then that kind of worked for us. So we're like, what else? Like, ranch dressing. That's like something I used to dip my pizza in college when I was drunk. And I love ranch dressing, but like, I don't eat that anymore because it's gross. And then, we made that with avocado oil and like cleaned up that ingredient statement too. So we kind of like honed in on these ketchup, same thing, like why so much sugar? Can we do this without sugar? And we don't use we're not big on we have some stevia and monk fruit in we might have stevia in our whey protein. We have monk fruit in our collagen protein powder. But other than that, we don't have any even those aren't sugars, like artificial sweeteners, but even natural sweeteners, we just don't have any of those in most of our products. So yeah.
We coach people through like 30-day nutrition programs. And then, so when we, kind of give them insight on grocery shopping, like, okay, here's what we're going to do. And we always recommend, we're like, if you're going to get dressings, condiments, salad dressings, just get Primal Kitchen. Trust me, you can trust the brand. It's going to be good.
I love it. Thank you.
Ask me or send me the pictures of it. Like, just if you go with that brand, you're good to go. And then they try it. They're like, this tastes so good. You're telling me this is healthy. So for anyone out there who doesn't know the Primal Kitchen brand, today's the day. It's time to get to know it. My favorite dressings, I love the Green Goddess dressing for salads. We use the unsweetened ketchup, which you guys, just for your guys' education listening, if you don't already know it. Yeah, high fructose corn syrup is this highly processed syrup made of corn, and it goes through all these chemical processes, and what it does in your body, it just sends inflammation into your body, because your body's like, what is this food-like substance? I don't even know what that is. And inflammation a lot of times is the root of disease in our body. So the less we can have these highly processed canola oils, these hydrogenated oils, this high fructose corn syrup, the more it can be natural. Like ketchup should be tomatoes and some vinegar, balsamic vinegar. Like we don't have to complicate it and add all these things to it. Or if we can substitute avocado oil for highly processed canola oil, like it's so good for our bodies. So if you don't know the Primal Kitchen brand yet, it's time to get familiar. It's so good. You find it, Whole Foods. You guys are everywhere, right? Anywhere where there's remotely healthy stuff, I feel like you're there.
Yeah. And we're even in Walmart at this point. So Publix, Walmart, Kroger, Costco, Whole Foods. Yeah. The whole gamut. Yeah. It must be said though, I feel like I make it sound so easy. Like it was just, we got to 50 million in 3 years and sold the company for 200 million. But Mark had been blogging and developing a following for 10 years prior to the launch of the business. So I think that was we had people to talk to when we went to market, and then we had the right product at the right time. But I think that was those three things really all needed to fall in place to kind of get us where we were.
What is it like for you And like, I'm sure your oldest son, he's 3 now. He probably like recognizes the brand. Like when you're in a store and you see it, like, has that ever hit you of being like, wow, like that's pretty amazing that that's something that I was a huge part of.
Yeah, no, it's cool for sure. And like, or when you're in a store, like you're in northern Wisconsin where my parents' lake house is in the middle of nowhere and you find it in like some small grocery store. You're like, how did this even get here? Like, this is so cool. And yeah, it is definitely like a baby, like at our wedding, I had like gift baskets and I, put Primal Kitchen and everything. And like, I think I talked about Primal Kitchen in our wedding speech. Like, it's definitely like, feels a part of my ethos at this point. So, and on top of it, like our first hire was my best friend, the same one that moved to South America with me after college, Anna. She's still our VP of marketing today. There's an amazing entrepreneur, Amanda, who hired me at Kavita. She is our EVP of growth. I was consulting for another company in between Kavita and Mark at the same time. And Rick came over from there and he was our kind of the third partner with Mark, me, and then Rick. So my best friend in Los Angeles manages the Target account and sales for us. One of my best friends from growing up manages West Coast sales for us. So it's been very much like a family affair on top of that. And then the folks that, weren't in my wedding party or I didn't know since childhood, because it's such a like mission driven organization and everyone's like so bought in on like the lifestyle, it feels very like family oriented. It feels like a family run business. We try to keep it that way, but yeah.
Do you feel like, was this ever your vision? Like, do you feel like when you, reflect on what you guys have created, like, could you have imagined this like 10 years ago?
So I think that's an interesting question. I think about this. I remember telling my team this last year, like when in my 20s, I was like really clearly, I mean, I jumped all over from like accounting to an advertising agency to doing research for a political author and then into marketing. Like I was all over the board and like stressed a lot about like, what do I want to do with my life? Like I applied to be a naturopathic doctor. I was like, maybe I want to be a sex therapist. Maybe I want to be a teacher. Maybe I want to I really would go, I was kind of, I don't know, like ADD about what do I want to do? And then, I just kept sticking in on this, honing in on kind of I didn't even know what the food industry looked like. I don't think I would have been like, oh, I want to work in CPG. I hadn't even heard that term before, but I was infatuated with these brands in the grocery store. And so it all kind of fell into place. But I remember thinking when I worked at Kavita, when I quit Kavita, maybe I'll have enough experience to be a marketing consultant. And then I was a marketing consultant. I'm like, maybe, I always kind of wanted to have my own business, right? I'm like, maybe one day I can have my own business and then I can sell it. And then these things kept happening that I was thinking. And then I was like, time out. You got to be careful what you're thinking here because you're either you might not be setting the bar high enough. I told my team that at Primal Kitchen last year, we got to be really careful what we're manifesting or reaching towards because we might reach it. So let's set the bar high enough. We had a pretty big sales goal to get to 105 million in net sales at the end of last year. And the year before we had done 60 million. So it was a big stretch. It was almost doubling the business, in 2 years. And at that point, it's not easy, but it's much easier to double the business from 10 to 20 than it is from 60 to 100, more or less, right? And we had a lot of people on our team who like didn't think we were going to do it. And sure as shit, we did 105.8 million. Like we set our mind to it and like the team accomplished it at the end of the year. And we had some folks who quit who were like, we're never going to hit this. Like this number is like outrageous. And we did. So I think you got to like set a goal, not like something ridiculous, but like you're not going to meet it if you don't set it. Yeah. So make sure you set it high enough.
So amazing. So what's your vision like now? Like when you fast forward another 10 years, like, do you think you'll create other brands? Do you think you'll create other things? Like,
be careful what you think.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is what I'm struggling with. I will say, like, as a mom, this is like also a really interesting question for me right now. So I have always, for as long as I can remember, like I wanted to launch I was making my own sunscreen and like popping astaxanthin pills with they're like pink and it's like provides a natural sunscreen and squeezing it into like my zinc oxide, like Badger sunscreen and wearing that when I was surfing and stuff. And then I wanted to create a sunscreen brand and then wanted to create a formula company. And then there's always like infant formula. There's always like something ruminating for me. And right now, I'm like fresh out. I'm like, there's 8 companies doing the infant formula thing. Like, I'm good. I'm just happy I can buy like Serenity Foods toddler formula for my boys. Like, I don't want to do, all these things that I was like, would have been home runs. I could have started. I knew they would have been good, but I'm pretty content, but then also like a little bit eating away at myself inside of like, well, where's the normal entrepreneurial motivation? But I think what I've come to learn is like that stuff comes and goes. Like intrinsic motivation comes and goes, and you just gotta wait until it comes again. And then like if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. So right now I'm pregnant, and we have like, we're going to have 3 boys under 4. So maybe that's also like, I'm just good for a little while.
I'd say so.
Yeah. And I didn't think I would stay at Kraft Heinz this long. Like, I thought they would have fired me when they made the acquisition. And then I'm like, well, surely they'll get rid of me after a year. And then I'm like, I can't believe I'm still around. But like almost our entire leadership team and then some, like the company's like still the same people running the business. So I'm still like waking up excited to work at Primal Kitchen every day. And a lot of the like really stressful parts of running the business, like we grew with a line of credit that Mark had a personal guarantee on, which means if we defaulted on our line of credit, like they could have taken his house, right? We grew the business with like, at one point it was up to like a $10 million line of credit that Mark had personal guaranteed. So that went away when we sold the companies. We didn't have to deal with like bank financing, which was nice, not to have to like just provide that level of, I don't know, security. And then, the legal team at Kraft Heinz is much better versed than like Mark and I trying to figure out legal issues on our own. And so a lot of the like super stressful parts of running the business before the acquisition are gone. And we get to just do like the fun stuff now, like make new products. Yes, there's like more corporate BS, but we've been able to kind of like have a nice fence up. They've been really good to us at Kraft, and we've continued to grow. So I think that's why they've been nice to us. And so this was good for now. But I think, yes, like 10 years down the road, I would like to start another thing or two. I would like to have, I was telling you guys this, I want to have some Airbnbs.
That's right.
Yes.
I want one in Hawaii. That's just like a condo, so it's low maintenance. We're in Florida on like 2.5 acres, and we're on the intercoastal out in Sarasota and Siesta Key actually, and it's just like way too much maintenance for us. So we're like, we need a walkable surf location, like 2-bedroom condo where we can just throw all the boys in a bunk room and then rent it out as an Airbnb when we're not there. So that's like our next entrepreneurial goal.
I think that's what I see. That's the vision. You're going to be surfing. You're going to be a rad mom. And
that's what I wanted.
Run Airbnbs. And then whenever a business idea pops up to you,
then you can move
hell
on it.
Yes. You're going to be like, I'm going to just run with it. Like that's, and it's a super empowering. I think there's a few things to unpack of like that entrepreneurial spirit oftentimes is go, go, go is drive. But hearing you say like, I did the hustle and then we sold the company and now I'm in this flow state, this ebb and flow of my life where I'm going to focus on being a mom and a wife, and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And then, but I'm sure something will come up and it'll come to me and I'll run with that idea. So that is empowering, I think, for entrepreneurs to hear that, you might be in the trenches right now. It's not necessarily always that way. And there's the ebbs and flows. And I also love the premise of our show, Getting Magnetic, is kind of that, what you think about, you bring about, like your life is a physical manifestation of what you think about all day long. So where do your thoughts go? Where does your energy go? And it's cool to hear kind of your story and your journey and how that all has come to fruition, and excited to see where it goes next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you said too, I literally just had a conversation with a girlfriend about this yesterday, how you were like, if it's not a hell yes. I literally told my friend yesterday, she's going through a big life decision. And I told her, if it's not a fuck yes, then it's a hell no. Like every fiber of your being needs to be all in on this decision. And if it's not aligned, don't force it, So I love that you said that. That's how we live our life too. Okay. So in wrapping up, I'd love to ask you, since you're a guest on Getting Magnetic, what does getting magnetic mean to you?
It reminds me of like, I would say maybe being in like the flow state, like surfing, where you're so involved in something that you are completely unaware of everything else that's going on in the world. So I think that would maybe mean what getting magnetic means to me.
I love that. Flow state here
Flow
for that.
state.
Well, thank you so much for your time, your energy, your story. I know you inspired a lot of people. You sure as hell inspired me. Really like exploding the vision over here of what's possible. And when you move back to California, I'm manifesting that we're all going to bump into each other in LA.
Yeah, we would love that. Or we'll come down to you too. We're totally down. It was great to meet you guys. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here.
Only those that can see the invisible can do the impossible.
So remember, you are magnetic.